Welcome back to The Grind. In this video, we're going to talk about time management and what to do with your valuable time if you only have 30 minutes to get in game or 60 minutes to get in game or longer. So we're going to go through a little bit about what can you do in 30 minutes, and then if you have more time, what would you focus on after that? This topic was a recommendation from one of my viewers a little while ago, and efficiency is very important for this, and having a routine that you do every time you log in that will help you be quicker about things as well. So I have a pretty strict routine whenever I log into the game, because if you log in at a certain time, some of these things may be missed. So you got to make sure you check on them later when you log in as well. And so what I did was I just recorded myself play the first time in the morning for my first 30 minutes. And I played for 30 minutes straight and saw how much I could get done within that time. And we're not going to play that straight through. I've speed things up and I'm cutting sections out, and we'll talk about what all I was able to get done. But here's the list that I came up with for what can you do and what should you do with just 30 minutes to play. The first thing you want to do is claim your daily rewards and do your basic maintenance stuff like the forge and stuff like that. The second thing is I always check my egg missions before I go and do any attacks, because it might determine which dragons I use or which bases I need to attack. The third thing is I do an event check-in, and really that just checks on where we're at in the event, if we're coming to the last few minutes of a round, if the temple guardians are about to expire, if we're pushing in the last few minutes to either take over a territory or win a round. Those are important things that you want to check in on right away so that you can help your team in that situation. The other thing I would do is use a little bit of energy to get the energy starting to regenerate. And then I will move on and come back to it if there's nothing urgent that needs to be done in the event. Especially for things like fortification and breeding, there's usually not urgent stuff that has to be done. So after that, I will go into Atlas and do my check-ins, my daily stuff, my maintenance. Once those basic things are done, and this all probably takes less than 5 minutes, then I would go back to the event and I would do my event grinding. And then after that, I would move on to Atlas and do some Atlas grinding, either EXP, gold, or glory runs. So that is how I would prioritize my things to do in the game with my time. Now, obviously, depending on the day and the event and what time you're checking in, this might change. And I was actually pretty surprised at how much I was able to get done within a 30-minute period. So let's look at all that I was able to do. The first thing I like to do is clear all or most of my notifications. If I have a lot of in-game mail, I'll kind of triage them and open them later if it's something that I want to make sure that I read and respond to. And then I'll go and I'll claim the daily rewards on the harbor and the hut there, the team building there, but it looks like I'd already claimed them because I was working night shifts. Then I will claim the forge items, go check on them, and salvage the ones that I don't want to keep. Lucky me, I got an elite gear. And then I will go in and I put more items into the forge, the items and the gear, to make sure that I'm constantly forging and crafting things. I'm currently focusing on crafting havocs and death gazes, and right now I'm just building random gear basically. And so after that, I go claim lumber and food if you need it, and then go over and check on the missions so you know which dragons to use and what spells you need to focus on using. After that is when I do my event check-in. It is PvP, so there's always something to do. Currently, there is nothing active in a rush to do, so I'm just going to do one attack to use my energy, and I'm going to use Collicid because I need to use Siphon Strike for one of my missions. I spend a lot of time thinking about and trying to coordinate things so that I can multitask and spend less effort on things. You always want to try to increase your efficiency and decrease the amount of work you have to do for anything that you're doing. So if you can knock out 2 or 3 different goals you have with one flight, then that is obviously the most ideal. So this run was allowing me to use some energy to score points in PvP as well as complete some of my egg missions. So now that that's done and there's nothing urgent to be done in PvP at this point, I'm going to claim some of my missions, double check what I need to do next, and then go into Atlas to do my check-ins. I usually like to do one quick check of an Alleghane to see if there's any targets to hit, and in this situation there is. But of course I hit the problem where I have trouble getting my Primarch over there. I skipped that part because it was probably like 2 minutes of time, and then I finally got in, but unfortunately, I died with Gnarlith because he couldn't kill the towers. So come to the rescue, Morak, who can kill the towers, and I was able to get through that island and kill that base. I still did kill his troops, so I did get some glory, but it unfortunately wasn't as good as it should have been. At this point, I don't feel too comfortable that those troops are still there. So I move on with my daily maintenance, and that is going to be to claim your daily rewards and renew your rider missions. And I actually did this a while ago because I was on night shift, so I did those for today already. But the next thing would be to go into the invader and do some runs to get gold and to complete the token missions that we looked at before. And so I did that. I did a few runs to complete those missions. Now, as you can see, I didn't even do this the most efficient way because I wasn't paying close enough attention to what spell I was supposed to use, and I didn't focus on using Northern Lights as much as I should have. So I had to go back and do a couple more to get that done. Now that I have some gold, I'm going to train my troops, which you want to make sure you're doing as often as possible. Then you can check in, clear some of these chests out and claim your missions, and that all was done in 10 minutes. So now we're into 10 minutes of playing, and we're going to move on to the next step, which, if you remember from the start of the video, is event grinding. So I go back into the event to check in and where we're at and use my energy. I find out that the Temple Guardians have been reached, so I have a lot of grinding to do on that. Now, the sound that this animation just made really threw me off when I heard it, so I had to go back and edit that a little bit. Anyways, so I went through and I completed all these Guardians, and it took about 12 minutes to do this time around. And then after that, I would go through and use the rest of my energy. Now, if this wasn't the Temple raid and I didn't have to spend 12 minutes on the Guardians, I would have had plenty of time to do a 100% energy refill at this time and burn through all of that with a mix of super attacks and basic attacks. And that's usually what I would do with this time during PvP events. So I was essentially able to complete all my account maintenance and upkeep and basic stuff within the first 10 minutes. And then the second 10 minutes or so was my event grinding. And there's a little bit extra event grinding to do this time because I did have to go through the Shrine Guardians. But then after that, I would have had time typically to go back into Atlas to do a little bit extra work there as far as EXP runs, gold runs, or even trying to farm a little bit of glory. So I did end up being somewhat surprised at how much I was able to get through in a short period of time. Now, that's the first 30 minutes, and honestly, that's oftentimes all you need at one given time. Now, being able to check in for 30 minutes several times a day does make a huge benefit to you and your team. And in some situations, depending on what's going on, you may need more time at one given time in order to do the things that you need, especially if you're farming glory or you're doing stuff in Atlas like trying to conquer or defend a castle. So there are definitely things that can take up a lot of extra time, but just to simply score well in events, being able to check in for up to 30 minutes a few times a day is very impactful on your ability to do well. And that being said, even if you do not have as much time to get in game, you only have a few minutes or 5 to 10 minutes, you can still do very beneficial things with that time. If you happen to get on at a crucial moment in a PvP event, then you might be able to do a few super attacks or even a mega attack that might be enough added support to make a big difference for your team, or to get a couple glory runs in, or to farm a little more gold or EXP. So a little bit of time here and there can add up to be very significant as well. And then of course, if you've gone through all of this and you have that extra 30 to 60 minutes longer to spend playing the game, there are a lot of different options. You can continue working on the event if you have the resources to spend, or really a lot of your time can be spent in Atlas if your team has Atlas. There's endless amount of time you could spend glory farming as long as you have the troops. And if you don't have extra troops, you can farm gold for you and your team, or work on farming EXP for your dragons, or even doing some chest farming, which I do have a video on to how to do it most efficiently, and I'll put that down in the description if you're interested. So I hope this was helpful. Good luck and see you in the next video.